Have you ever looked at the ingredients listed on a carton of store-bought almond beverage? If you have, then you are familiar with the words gellan gum, sunflower lectin, locust bean gum, ascorbic acid, vitamin, mineral blend, and my favorite, natural flavor. I don't know what any of those mean. While there are many brands from which to pick, they all have plenty of preservatives, even if the carton says no artificial ingredients. If you know how to make a basic nut or oat milk, you will never run out of milk. I have used these beverages in place of milk to make homemade breads and sauces for pasta or desserts. These milk beverages work really well in place of regular milk. Today we are making my most basic version of almond beverage that Scott and I use in our morning oats or cereal. For a good basic version, all you need are raw whole almonds, salt, honey, and filtered water. That's it for ingredients. If you want to fancy it up, you can add almond or vanilla extracts or a little rose water. Feel free to add any flavorings, including chocolate or strawberries or any berry for that matter. You could sweeten the milk with dates as well or maple syrup. There are many options. Just use your imagination. If you make oat or coconut beverage, you won't have to soak anything. You can make those milk beverages immediately, and that could be a kitchen lifesaver. Let's make this milk the almond version. Our first step is to soak the almonds. For almonds, however, you must soak them to soften the almond meat. So we're going to measure out 1 cup of whole almonds, and they are raw. We're going to put them in a small bowl. We're going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. The salt is what's going to help pull out that phytic acid that some people are allergic to. And then we're going to add some filtered water, and then we're going to cover the almonds until they're about 1 inch or so above, because the almonds will swell as they soak. We want to make sure they've got room to grow here. We're going to leave our bowl here on the counter until morning and let them sit for about 8 hours. Then they'll be rinsed, drained, and pulverized into a milk beverage. I also prep these in the morning to be pulverized in the evening, so I don't have to do it in the morning. So that's up to you, but that's it for prepping. So my almonds have been sitting overnight on the counter, so it's been a lot more than 8 hours, but 8 hours is all you need. It's time to rinse, drain, and make the beverage. So if you take a look, these almonds have plumped up because of the water. They've soaked it in. The water's a little cloudy, and that's normal. If you rinse your water every couple of hours, then you won't have the cloudiness, but it doesn't matter. It's fine. The soaking also allows the phytic acid, the enzyme in almonds, to be removed. And for some people, phytic acid is a little bit difficult to digest. But if you soak the almonds, no problem. Let's rinse them. So all we need to do is drain them to remove the cloudy water, the stale water they've been sitting in all night, as well as the phytic acid that has been somewhat removed from the almonds. And let's just rinse them off. So we're gonna place our almonds into our blender, and I'm using a Vitamix blender. It does wonders in making any kind of a milk beverage because it really pulverizes those nuts really, really well. So to this, we're gonna add a teaspoon of salt, and then we're gonna add 3 tablespoons of honey. I always like to spray my measuring utensils with cooking spray because the liquids just fall right off. So we're gonna do 3 tablespoons of honey here. So this is 1. Notice how easily that just comes off after you spray it with cooking spray. You can decide how sweet you want this. Scott and I like to have almond milk for breakfast and in our cereals. So usually 3 to 4 tablespoons is enough for us. If you're gonna make something savory with this milk, you might wanna go closer to the 3 tablespoon range. If you want a little sweet, try 4 or 5. So 2 to 3, I would say 2 to 5, depending on how sweet or how savory you would like to have your milk. But we're gonna go 3 today because that's sort of in between. Okay, so we're gonna add filtered water. Now, most almond milk recipes call for 4 to 5 cups of water per 1 cup of almonds. I like mine a little thinner, so I'm actually gonna use 8 cups today. But you can do as much as little as you want. You can make that decision based on your preferences. So again, I'm showing you my preference, but you can add more or less depending on what you like. So I put just enough in to cover the almonds because this is where all the big pulverizing happens. You don't want too much liquid because you won't have probably as much almonds that are being broken down. So I like to put just enough water above the almonds. And with the 8 cups of water, it's gonna be more of the consistency of skim milk. But if you like a 2% or really thick whole milk, then definitely use less than the 8 cups. So it's going to turn it on and let it start going. I like to start mine on low for a few moments just to make sure everything is kind of getting mixed up and getting it a start. And then I move my speed up to level 6, which is just a little bit more than halfway, and let it run for a few moments there until everything looks like it's broken down really well. Okay, let's add the rest of this 4 cups here. Sometimes I'll leave my machine running and I just take off the top center of my lid here. I can take off the center, and sometimes I just pour the water in as it's going. Let's let it run some more. Okay, so that's 4 cups, which is oftentimes what most people will use, the 4 cups, because they want a thicker milk. So I'm just gonna show you the consistency of this. Now granted, we haven't strained it yet, so you still have the almond pulp in here. But let's take a look and see. It'd be easier if I just poured in a little. Okay, we haven't strained it, but really you can't see the pulp in there anyway because it's at the top. You can see it's definitely consistency of maybe a more 2% to whole milk, I think is the consistency. So you could stop right there with your 4 cups and just strain it and drink it as is. Again, I prefer a thinner milk. So I'm gonna go another 4 cups. So we're gonna pour this back in here. Okay, and I'm gonna add more water. And I have a really big Vitamix here. If you have a smaller one, you probably will not be able to do 8 cups. But I will tell you this, 8 cups of this water will produce a full ½ gallon of milk. So if you drink a lot of it, you might want to go the 8 cups, but then you might want to do 2 cups of almonds if you like that thicker milk. So we're just gonna let it run for 20 seconds maybe. Just make sure it all gets blended up. So that's it. Now it's time to strain it. Now, there are several methods of straining your almond milk, and I've tried several over the years. Initially, I used cheesecloth, which I did like having to add to the landfill every time I made almond beverage, and it's also another expense. So then I resorted to using a kitchen towel. I actually recommend this one. So all you would have to do is pour your almond beverage into the towel over a big bowl, and then you pull up your towel and then you squeeze out the almond beverage. I used to do it that way and it worked fine. And then you just scrape off the almond pulp and then you throw this in the laundry. It's very simple. You can also buy nut bags, which are tall muslin bags that have a closure at the top so you could squeeze out the almond beverage and leave the pulp inside. And I haven't bought a nut bag because I have other methods of doing that. So my preferred method these days is using 2 strainers. And I do them at once. So I put a smaller one inside of a bigger one and just pour it in. I'll show you that in a minute. So there's nothing left behind to deal with. The caveat with this method is that there will still be some small almond pieces that get into the milk. Scott and I don't mind having them in our cereal, so for us it's not a problem. But if you really want a really well-strained beverage, then you might want to use the towel or nut bag or a cheesecloth. This is how it goes using the 2 strainers. So I have my smaller strainer sitting inside of a bigger strainer. All right, we're just going to remove the lid of our blender. Let's move our blender aside. So then all we do is we pour it in. So most of the almond pulp will stop in the top strainer, and then what the top strainer doesn't get, the bottom strainer will usually catch. And I usually like to swirl it around to get most of the almond pieces out. Okay, empty. And then while it's slowly draining, I just use a spatula and move the almond pulp around in that top strainer, pressing out as much of the liquid as I can, and just let it ooze out through the bottom to the bowl. All right, so once you get all of the liquid squeezed out, that's what's left is the almond pulp. This was like gold. You don't want to throw this away. You can't throw this away. When I first started making almond milk, I threw my pulp away because I didn't know what to do with it. It didn't take me long to figure out that I'm wasting. There's a lot of value left here. See my video on what to do with the almond pulp. But for now, we're just gonna set it aside because it doesn't have to do with the milk right now. Okay, and then I'm gonna continue to use my spatula and just trying to get the rest of the milk out of the bottom strainer. See what's left over? So you can see that even with 2 strainers, you still strain out a lot of the pulp. Even these little fine particles didn't make it into the milk. But you are gonna have some particles that do get into the milk. Okay, we're done with the milk. Now all we have to do is put it in a container. So you can buy bottles that are for milk online, like through Amazon or another company. We buy local milk, and so our milk comes in glass bottles. So I just kept one of the bottles. Actually, I keep 2 or 3 because I make almond milk about once or twice a week. So then you just need, this is a ½ gallon bottle, and then I just have a funnel and then just a ladle. Now you'll notice that the top of our milk has a lot of froth on it, and that's great, but I don't want to put it in the jar if I can help it, because then you'll have all this extra froth that's taking up most of the space of the jar and less milk. So I just push it around and then add my milk to my jar. And this is as simple as it can be. Now, if you make less milk than I'm making here, then if you just do 4 cups, you could leave it in that measuring cup like I have. It's a 4-cup measuring cup, and then you can just pour it into your jar here. But since I'm using 8 cups, I don't have a container that big, so we have to use a big mixing bowl. So there's gonna be a little bit of almond sediment at the bottom once this sits, but that is not gonna hurt anything because you can drink that. It's gonna provide some nutritional value as well, as long as you don't mind it. All right, and I just keep the caps that come with the milk bottle jug, so it's easy just to seal it up. Take a look. We have a 1/2 gallon of almond milk ready to go. Look how pretty it is. You can see the color from the honey has definitely flavored a little bit. You can see a little bit of sediment of the almonds at the bottom. Now, as this sits during the day or overnight, it's gonna start to separate. You're gonna see a layer of sediment at the bottom from the almond. You're gonna see a much lighter liquid here and a little thicker at the top. That means it's just separated. Before you drink it anytime, just make sure that you shake it up. Just a few moments and you're good to go. And then use it in whatever capacity you want. Any place where you could use milk, you could use this almond milk. This milk would last in the fridge easily for 4 to 5 days, maybe longer, if you can make it last that long. And you can see it's not too watery. Even though there are 8 cups of water in here, it looks like something you would get from the store. It's still that thick. So let's give this a quick taste. 8 cups of water. It's not too thin. For me, this is the right consistency, at least the consistency that I like. Sometimes I will mix this with whole milk in my cereal, have a little bit more creaminess with a little bit more of an almond flavor. It does have almond flavoring, and we didn't put any vanilla extract in here or almond extract, but it does have that almond flavor. It's not too sweet. For me, I like this is a 3 tablespoons, and I like the 3 tablespoons with the 8 cups of water. It's just right. So try this recipe. If you don't like it, adjust it. Adjust the liquid, adjust the flavorings. And you can actually make something that you truly want, that you enjoy, instead of tolerating whatever is sold on the market. So that's it. Regardless of the weather, or whether or not you have milk in your fridge, if you keep nuts, coconut flakes, or oats on hand, you will always have milk. Homemade milk to drink, or milk to use in cooking or baking. Now that's what I call being self-sufficient. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you subscribing to my channel and sharing my videos with your family and friends. Until next time, go bake the world.